It's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are back with our girl Miss Kaitlyn Amanda doing reverse culture shocks, going back to America after living in Australia for 1.5 years. Before we dive into these reverse culture shocks, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested. Kaitlyn, what we got?
G'day guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kaitlyn and I'm an American living in beautiful Sydney, Australia. This video is so long overdue, you guys. I'm finally getting to the reverse culture shocks of what it's like moving to Australia, going back to the States to visit family, and then coming back to Australia. In fact, this list was so long, I have to break this video up into 2 parts. So today we're getting into the first 10 huge reverse culture shocks that I faced. So if you want to see what it's like from an American's perspective going back to the States after living abroad for 1.5 years, grab a bicky, grab a cuppa, and let's get right into this video.
I'm very interested in this one. I'm very interested in this one. Because I've never been anywhere outside of America, so I don't know what it would be like reverse culture shocks. But after her living in Australia for 1.5 years, very intrigued on these reverse culture shocks.
So when we went back to the States, obviously we didn't visit every single city in every single state. Mark and I went to Houston. We spent most of our time in Philly, my hometown, and we spent a couple days in New York. So just know that what I'm talking about is from a very limited perspective, you guys. There is no possible way to cover what it is like all across the US. And the first culture shock that I saw was the homelessness situation, particularly in Philly. Now, walking around the Sydney CBD, yes, we do see homeless people out on the street, but not even close to the extent that I saw them in Philly. I'm talking every single city block, we ran into at least one person who looked like they were homeless, and I'm not saying they were wearing kind of ratty clothes or just looked a little bit down on their luck. I mean, it is very clear that they had nowhere else to go. In fact, there are some situations where it actually felt a little bit scary for us, which is something I never had to deal with over here in Sydney. I forgot what it's like actually being a little bit afraid of some homeless people. Not because they're all bad or because they've got a screw loose, but some of them look downright dangerous. In fact, we had one guy with a switchblade who looked like he was trying to clean it off, and he came up to us. Now, granted, it was closed, but was holding it out to us like, do you guys know how to dry this off? Do you know how to dry this off? Random homeless guy with a switchblade. Okay, not exactly what I was expecting.
Don't just approach me with no switchblade. Like, I understand why she felt in danger. I would have felt a little scared too. I'd have been like, nah, I don't know how to draw that off, man. Like, can you get that away from me, bro? But yeah, I see videos where they talk about the homelessness in Australia, and Americans have said, like, I think I seen a video on her before where she talked about this, and maybe another channel from American who was also in Australia, where they talk about it's just like Australia's homelessness can't even compare to America's homelessness. Like, it's not even a fair comparison. America has so much, like, that's insane though. That's definitely insane.
First week back in my home country. The homelessness situation in Philly has gotten so out of hand, and we're fortunate enough that in Sydney it's not nearly as bad as it is over in the States. Granted, it's still a problem, it's still an issue over here, but not even close to the extent that it is back in my home city. I know this is going to start off as like a little bit of a negative list, but the second thing I noticed was just how dirty Philly is. New York, a little bit too, to be honest. Houston was bright and sunny and big beautiful blue skies. We didn't notice.
Shout out Texas. Shout out Texas, you feel me? Gotta love Texas. I'm in Tennessee now, but gotta love Texas.
Houston was bright and sunny and big beautiful blue skies. We didn't notice it nearly as much there, but granted we were only there for 1 day. In Philly, it is such a dirty, gritty, grimy city. I mean, the streets aren't cleaned at all, the buildings aren't cleaned at all, there's graffiti everywhere, and everywhere you go you feel like you're walking in dirt. It's tough to explain, but unless you've seen how beautiful and clean and pristine the CBD is here in Sydney, it's really tough to explain to Americans just how different it is. You have a couple of nicer areas, but even then the upkeep in those isn't all that great, if I'm going to be honest. The sidewalks look dirty, the streets look dirty. It's like the buildings are covered in some kind of grime. It's so difficult to explain. And that doesn't take away from some of the beautiful architecture Philly has to offer. Philly is an incredible historic city. But the reality is, if you're spending time there and you're not just in the touristy places, it's kind of a dirty city to be in. Number 3.
Yeah, I've never been to Philly and I've never been to New York. And obviously I've never been to Australia. But I'd be intrigued like to see the difference in just how much more clean from her, because from her perspective, I'm going along with Kaitlyn because she's been to both places, so I'm gonna take her perspective. I'd be intrigued to see like how much cleaner the Australian cities are, or Sydney is than a Philly or New York. I feel like that would be interesting just to see the differences in the comparison.
In the touristy places, it's kind of a dirty city to be in. Number 3 was a little bit heartbreaking for me because I remember walking around pre-pandemic and Philly was a huge, thriving, bustling city. And walking around the city, it was about a third of the offices and the shops were for rent or for lease. COVID hit so many small businesses so hard over in the States. And we're definitely seeing the aftermath of that now 3 years into or slightly post-pandemic. I remember going to this restaurant for lunch or going shopping in this place on my lunch break, and so many of those stores just aren't around anymore or they've completely moved way further down the street. It is so sad seeing so many places closed up. Walking around Sydney CBD, I do see for lease signs and for rent signs, but not nearly as much as I do. It still feels like Sydney is thriving, it's bustling. Whereas in Philly, I don't have that feeling anymore. It's like so many places have closed up and so many offices have people working from home now that the city's like kind of starting to die out a little bit. Number 4, and I know Aussies are gonna...
Yeah, I would say COVID definitely hit the U.S. very hard, and definitely those small businesses. You couldn't afford to keep them open. If people can't come in, they can't shop, they can't eat, they can't do this or that in your store requires customers to be coming in, then you just like, it's sad, but you lost so much that you didn't have a choice but to close down, and that sucks for those small like shops, because they had to, but yeah, COVID definitely hit very hard in America.
City's like kind of starting to die out a little bit. Number 4, and I know Aussies are going to get on me for this one, but there's an abundance of fast food places over in the States. I know America is notorious for its fast food. Everybody loves to talk about the fat American stereotype where someone's just sitting there eating a Big Mac. But the truth is there are so many fast food places. It's so easy to access places like McDonald's and Taco Bell and Wendy's and KFC. Just everywhere, and in a lot of cases they're actually cheaper options than shopping at other food places or even cooking food at home yourself. So there is an abundance of fast food places over in the States. It was almost overwhelming, the choices that we had in the limited amount of time that we were there. Number 5 was one kind...
Nah, there's ridiculous. Like, I pulled out the street and I go to the right and I'm going to run. In 2 miles that I drive, I'm going to run into at least 10 to 15 different fast food spots. I could pull out and go to the left 2 miles. I'm going to run into at least 10 to 15 fast food spots. Like, legit, there's options everywhere. There's also a lot of healthy fast food options I've noticed, like, as I'm starting to drive around. There's many of them. I feel like they don't get recognized as much because they just are more expensive. It's too much for a meal. Like, and I hate that like eating healthier is more expensive. I mean, if you know how to do it right though, you know what I'm saying? You can go grocery shopping and you can still eat healthy on a budget. You can still do that. But for the most part, just most ingredients or anything you buy that's a healthier option, whether it be fast food or in the grocery store, is just going to be more expensive than the unhealthy option.
The choices that we had in the limited amount of time that we were there. Number 5, this one kind of gets under my skin, is rude Uber drivers. I've dealt with a couple, like, kind of rude-ish ones over here in Sydney, but it felt like 9 out of 10 of the Uber drivers we had over in the States, whether it be in Philly or Houston or New York, were just rude people.
Wow.
I'm not saying you need to have the best customer service if you're riding an Uber. I'm sure it's not the most fun, exciting job out there.
Yeah.
But the level of rudeness that we faced, people were just flat out ignoring us if we were asking them questions. We've had people who just gave us dirty looks from the front seat of the car like we were doing something wrong sitting there and having a regular conversation. Like we were supposed to just sit there in silence for 20 minutes. I've never had that experience over here in Australia. It felt like we were inconveniencing them that we needed a ride somewhere, when that's quite literally the job that you volunteered for, signed up for, are getting paid for. After being home, that one really got under my skin, and I pointed it out to Mark when we got back. I'm like, at least the Uber drivers here, granted some of them are not the best drivers here, but at least they're nice. You can't say that about a lot of Uber drivers that we ran into over in the States. Number 6.
That's crazy. I've not taken Uber a lot. There's been trips where I've used Uber, and I never really ran into rude like Uber drivers. I never really had issues with them. When I was like out in California, I went to San Diego, and I can't remember where else I went, but I never really ran into like rude Uber drivers. But I know that it's crazy that, right, the 9 out of 10 that she's ran into like just had a problem or had an attitude, and like she said, this is like, you might not enjoy your job. I feel like most people, if not all people, like enjoy their job. Like most people don't enjoy their jobs. Most people, you just have to survive. So you're there to get a paycheck, to feed your family, to feed yourself, keep a roof over your head, pay the bills. You got to make money. So most jobs, right, you don't want to work, but you got to do it because you got to survive. And but at the end of the day, still, it is the job that you signed up for. And so it's not the person that ordered the Uber, right? They're not the ones who made you take this job. They're not the one who they're not the reason that you got to do this to pay your bills or anything. So like, treat people like with respect. Treat people with kindness. Don't be rude to people because you don't want to do what you're doing. Don't do it. There's no point in that. And also like just being nice and happy to people. Like, I don't know, it brightens your own day as well. It makes your own day better. But keep it rolling, Kaitlyn. I'm sorry.
You can't say that about a lot of Uber drivers that we ran into over in the States. Number 6 is customer service people in the States hate chit chat. They don't want to deal with small talk. They want to get you whatever it is you need and then have you move on so that way they can help the next customer. Especially in Philly. I'm not necessarily proud of this, but we've been voted the rudest city in the States.
Oh, wow.
Which kind of feels like getting a trophy for last place in a beauty pageant, if I'm going to be honest.
Wow.
It is not something you really want to be proud of. But I can definitely see where they're coming from, because people in Philly do not have time for small chit chat, small talk. They're not really the friendliest people you're going to run into, at least if you're a tourist. Same thing in New York as well. It's tell me what you need so I can give it to you and then be on our way. If Mark tried to start a little bit of chit chat with some of the customer service people, some of them looked at him like he was an alien. Like, why are you still talking to me? Or why are you trying to talk to me? I just want to do my job. So just know that if you're going over there, that's kind of the norm over there. That's kind of the culture, especially in Philly. Not that they're necessarily rude. They just don't want to deal with chit chat and small talk. Number 7 is America.
It's crazy because you think of America, you think like they're known like for their customer service. Like most people say like it's fake because they're like, these people are just trying to get paid, and so they have to be nice. You know what I'm saying? And so that's a shocking one. But I've never been to Philly, like I said. Dang, they're voted the rudest country in the States. I don't want to go now. Now I don't want to go to Philly. Where I'm from, I feel like the customer service for the most part are nicer. Of course, you're gonna get your mean ones, but for the most part, in general, where I'm from in Texas, most of the customer service people I know are nice. Now, do I try to involve them in like small talk or anything? Not really. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know if they're nice. I guess they're happy when I come into the store. I got the smile on. They're ready to help me with whatever I need help with. But I never tried to small talk with them, so I guess I don't know.
Necessarily rude. They just don't want to deal with chit chat and small talk. Number 7 is Americans hate comparisons between America and any other country, even if it's in their favor. Americans just get so caught up, shocked, taken aback if you bring up any sort of comparison between America and Australia. or America in any other country for that matter. And I'm not even talking on the political hot button issues like healthcare and education, gun reform, nothing like that. Now, I'm talking about like small little things like how cuts of meat are different in both countries, especially when it comes to steak. I'm talking about how we don't have pennies over here in Australia and our money looks completely different. I'm talking small little comparisons. Anytime you bring up any comparison, Americans kind of get their back up a little bit, even if you're talking about something in America's favor. Americans just don't like to hear comparisons between America and other countries. And I don't know if it's because we're so used to this American-centric mindset over in the States, or if because when we're compared to other countries, it's often in a negative light, so we automatically get put in that defensive position. But Americans just don't like hearing about other countries for the most part. Number 8 was...
I think it's like she said, where I feel like for the most part, when America does get compared to a lot of other countries, it's in a negative light. So a lot of Americans get their back up and like are ready to just defend America with everything that they have and are ready to just die on that hill. And like you said, it could be in their favor. And they're already in the mind state of dying on the hill and defending America that they're not even notice the fact that the argument is in their favor. But yeah, I feel like if you're not able to see the problems with your country, like, I don't care. Like, I love America. It's, you know what I'm saying? I've lived a good life here. I haven't ran into many problems, many obstacles. But I do know we have a lot of issues here. I do know that there's things in other countries that are done better than how we do it here in America. And I feel like you have to be able to notice that, right? Because you can't work on fixing those things until you notice those issues. And it seems like, yeah, a lot of Americans get their backs up very quickly. They don't even listen to what the person's saying. They're ready to get so defensive very quickly. And it's like, hold up, right? Take a second. Listen. It could be in your favor. But yeah, I feel that.
Americans just don't like hearing about other countries for the most part. Number 8 was always being mindful of where my and Mark's wallets were. Now, the places we went to, Philly, Houston, and New York, are not major pickpocket cities. Does it happen there? Absolutely. But is it a common problem like it is in some places in Europe? No. But walking around, I would find myself occasionally checking the inside of my purse or looking down at the bulge in Mark's pants, which I know does sound... Yeah, I know how that sounds. But checking to make sure that his wallet was still there. Get your mind out of the gutter, you guys. I was always just a little bit worried that something was going to happen. Somebody would grab something if we had it out of my purse or his wallet for too long. I was just always worried whenever we had to pull our wallets out, our money out. I've never had that feeling over here in Australia where I thought somebody would rush up and grab my credit card or grab the cash out of my hand. For some reason, I've always worried about that happening, especially over in New York when you're in so many big touristy areas with all the hustle and bustle and a lot of people. I always felt a little bit nervous about us having to take our card or cash out anywhere, and I was constantly checking to see whether or not Mark and I had our wallets on us, which is something I've never had to worry about when I was walking around the Sydney CBD. Number 9 is the
Yeah. I was like, once again, I've never been in New York or Philly, but like I've never had that feeling of worrying like constantly where my wallet is. If I was ever worried about where my wallet is, it's because I lose it and I forget where I put it all the time. But never that somebody will like take it from me or anything like that. But like I said, New York, yeah, I've heard many things about New York. And it is a very busy city, and there's people around you, it seems like, all the time if you're trying to go anywhere. And so I can understand the perspective of her having to like worry and check and just make sure. I can understand it.
Never had to worry about when I was walking around the Sydney CBD. Number 9 is the die-hard love for baseball over there. I've admitted it on quite a few videos. I'm not a baseball fan. I'm not a baseball girl, even though I was raised in a family that absolutely loved sports, loved baseball, and particularly loved the Philadelphia Phillies. Mark and I went to a Phillies game when we were over here, and I forgot just how exciting it is to go to a baseball game over in the States. The fans there are incredible. Philly has some of the best sports fans in the country, and I'm just going to say on this channel, in the world when it comes to some sports. The diehard love for baseball is something that can quite literally take your breath away when you're actually in the stadiums, surrounded by all that energy and all the buzz and the excitement. Even though baseball is not the most exciting sport out there, I've said it before, I will say it again.
I agree.
I'm not a huge fan of baseball. Actually being there really does show you the love of the sport. It is old school, classic Americana. You feel like you're somehow a part of history and something bigger than yourself when you're at a baseball game. And that is such an incredible feeling. If you ever go over to the States, even if you don't like baseball, go to a Major League Baseball game just to get that experience. It is incredible. And the last one for this part one video.
Yeah, I've never been to a baseball game. I don't think I'm with Kaitlyn. I'm not a big baseball fan, so I don't really have a perspective on that one. And I don't hang around with people like who are big baseball fans. So yeah,
To get that experience, it is incredible. And the last one for this part one video is that the American National Anthem is absolutely beautiful and so incredibly easy to fuck up. I'm saying, you guys, America's National Anthem is probably the most beautiful anthem I have ever heard. And I'm not saying that as American. I've heard Australia's national anthem. I've heard dozens of national anthems. I've even heard some of them converted into English. And the lyrics, just the entire musical score behind the American National Anthem is beautiful. If you've ever had the chance, stop and listen to it, read the lyrics. I know it sounds like something that you would definitely roll your eyes at an American talking about how incredible the American National Anthem is. It really is, and when it's done well, it can bring tears to your eyes. But it's a very tricky song, and it's incredibly easy for people to mess up, whether they're singing, whether it's playing it on an instrument, especially when they're singing. It's so easy to mess it up, and it is so frustrating when that happens because it's such a beautiful song with so much potential, and it's very, very, very easy for some people to completely butcher it. When we went to the Phillies game, they actually had, I think it was like Miss Pennsylvania and then Miss Teen Pennsylvania. Miss Teen Pennsylvania was playing the violin, Miss Pennsylvania was actually singing. It was haunting, you guys. They were incredible. It was beautiful. And that actually brought a tear to Mark's eyes. I was getting a little bit emotional, not just because of the song that I grew up with, but I was also like, oh my god, this is the first time I'm hearing the American National Anthem in person in like 4 years. So it was quite an overwhelming and incredible experience. But the American National Anthem is beautiful and so incredibly easy to fuck up. So that's it for this list, you guys. Did anything in this list surprise you? Is there anything you think is going to be on part 2? Make your predictions because that video is going to be coming out next week. Let me know down below what reverse culture shocks do you think are going to come up in part 2. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I so appreciate the support, you guys, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.
I can't wait to check out part 2 of it. And I completely agree with her on the fact that American National Anthem is very easy to mess up. You gotta sing it right. Like, then not anybody could just go out there and sing the national anthem, right? You better do it justice when you sing it, or you will definitely be criticized to the ends of the earth. But if you do it great, you will be praised to the ends of the earth. But it is a beautiful national anthem. I haven't really heard any other national anthems besides America, so I really don't have, I guess, any to compare it to. But I do enjoy it. That's all we got. You guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. It's your boy Neal. Out.